Hello, it is Matt, and welcome to this thing again. I almost did the gross oversimplifications thing. Oh well. So we're back. I can't remember what episode this is, but I've got this thing again. So last episode, I went through how I was going to place the bridge, and how I was going to measure that. And I thought it was worth mentioning because I have drilled it now. I thought it was worth mentioning that I was a little bit wrong. So I went through and I did it all in front of you, and I thought I was right. And then when I redid it, it turns out that I was probably a couple of millimeters off. And you might have actually have seen the existing screw holes, which was kind of the point of the whole thing, to sort of obscure that. And you know, that's why we redo stuff. And then I redid it again and found out that I was right. So now, and I've gone ahead and drilled them. And I also went ahead and drilled the holes in the body for the neck. So now the neck screws can go. So if I pull that in and out, that's going straight through the body. And it's just hitting the neck where I can screw it up. But I might have to take the neck off. So I'm not going to put them all in. Anyway, I have also started shielding the cavity, and I'm doing that with paint. I'm doing that with the conductive shielding paint from StuMac. It's all right. It's not as good as copper, but like I said before, I'm actually just going to do shielded cable, so it's almost unnecessary. I'm just doing this. I'm just doing it. I don't care why. It's a little bit of feel-goodness. It'll make a tiny bit of a difference. It's just not as conductive as copper, obviously. Otherwise, everything would be made out of shielding paint. But it's pretty good, and it'll do for the purposes of this. And you can see that I've got big bits of masking tape around it. So it's because I want a bit of a lip on the edge. So kind of here you can see. So it's still concealed under the scratch plate, but I want, because on the scratch plate, I'm going to be putting a big sheet of adhesive copper to form like the top layer underneath the pick guard. And that needs to close it in like a box. And then ideally, we will have a big box for all the electronics to live in. Faraday, blah, blah, blah. So that's the plan. I've got a couple more coats to do, so I'm not going to take off the paint. I'll probably take off the tape. I'll probably put a few more on. But what I wanted to do is put the bridge on and have a chat about some stuff to do with that. I'm not sure if you can see, but you'll have to trust me. On these 4 holes that I've drilled, you might be able to see that they look a bit different to the other ones. Maybe I can do this. I don't even know where that camera is. Anyway, I'll take a picture if that didn't work. So they are slightly different looking. And they're different looking because I drilled them properly. Okay? And what I mean by that is when... Okay, so first of all, when I was marking out the things, you just use a point, right? And I see a lot of people drill with a standard drill bit. They try and line it up with that point, and they kind of get it. If you don't know about these things, I can kind of show it there maybe. I don't know. What I use to drill accurate holes is it's called a brad point bit, and it's actually got a sharp middle, and then the tip of this is not the one I use, by the way. This is just the biggest one, so I thought it would be easier to see, which it probably isn't. So it's got a point, and then I was able to orient that point exactly to the little point that I made with a little spiky tool. And then I knew that it was going to be perfect. Okay, if I just used a big normal sort of drill bit, it would be a lot harder to find. Okay, and that's just a woodworking thing. This is not specialist equipment. It's just when you're doing these sort of ones, have a think. The other thing I've done is I've got this Countersink tool. Okay, and this is actually made for like cellos and violins and stuff. But I use it every day to just sort of countersink the hole. And you're like, you don't need to do that. But because it's a finished guitar, if I just left them as naked holes and started screwing into them, like ideally, if I did this right, the thread of the screw is kind of bigger than the hole, right? So if you go in to a normal hole with like the finish hard up to the edge, as the screw threads go in, they're going to crack the finish. And you can actually see, I don't know if you can see, I'll take a picture. The factory holes have got little chips around them. And that's because they didn't do this step, because they had probably 20 minutes to make this guitar. But we have a bit longer, so I just sort of make sure that the finish is out of the way of the bitey part of the screw before I screw into it. That's the tip of the day. Other tip of the day is, you might be like, what is that ugly hole there? And that is for the ground wire. And the ground wire is something that I'm going to put in now because I don't want to forget it. Okay. If I got all the way through the process and then realized that I'd forgotten the ground wire, everything would be a lot noisy. It would actually. How do I say this properly? The strings actually form part of the shielding of the guitar. So we've got the shielding, and then the strings are actually quite helpful in cutting down hum or extraneous noise from the universe. So we ground the strings, and we ground the strings through the bridge. So it's got to have a wire. So this generally goes up through, where is this one? Yep, there we go. So sometimes people have taken their bridge off and gone, what's that? That's not doing anything. That's not even connected to anything. And take it off. And it's stupid. Don't do that. Ground wires are real. That's why I'm doing it in front of you now. Before I put the bridge on, and I'll just strip this back. Now, this is sort of insulated wire. So I'm going to strip it back a little bit. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. And it'll also make it so it's thinner. So you don't want to upset the bridge, but you can kind of tell on most guitars where the ground thing is. It just needs to be pushed into the base of the bridge. So without actually screwing it in, I'll go like that. And the pressure of me screwing it down will sort of dent it in, and it'll be all good. It's always just a pressure fit. The ones where they've sort of soldered it to a lug and then used a spring and a screw, don't do that. Just do it the old-fashioned way. Sometimes you can loop it into an existing hole, and actually I might do that. Assuming we'll have enough downward pressure, which we will. I'll actually push that all the way along to the factory hole. And then it's got a place to be, and it won't come out. So, ground wire in. I'll just bend it and put it in that little hole. And that'll do. That'll work nicely. And notice I've left a fair bit here, because I don't know where I'm going to ground this. I do. I actually know exactly where I'm going to ground it. I'm going to ground it right here where the volume pot is, or will be. Anyway, ground wire in, bridge on. Looks pretty good. Now, Other thing, I've got a screw in my hand. When I'm screwing into brand new holes, lol, I use wax. I think this is wax. Something waxy. Some people use soap. And I just put a little bit on the tip. And what this does is it kind of eases the passing into the hole. And if your hole isn't exactly right, then the wax will sort of lube it up. So here we go. First go. Did I get it right? Now, I'm not going to put them all in. I'm actually just going to put this one on. Make sure we're all good. And we are all good. Because I want to sort of stick something in those existing holes just to seal them up from the weather. It's not really great to have open holes in your guitar. Just because moisture might get in. You know, you're sweating or you pour a beer on your guitar or whatever. It'll swell up. If it can get in the timber, it'll swell up and things can happen. But hopefully things won't happen. So, ground wire's on. Bridge will be on. I'm actually going to take it off again actually I'll take it off again now. So I can put more masking on here and finish the shielding. I just wanted to show you because now was the only moment of time that I have spare to do such a thing. And you will notice that there's no cracking around the finish because I did the countersink thing. That's it. That's my tip. So, next steps that I may or may not do on camera. I don't know. Depends if you're interested. I'm going to get it cracking with these electronics. And I did realize that the holes in the base plate, cavity control, what are we going to, control plate. Let's go with that. Control plate. These were drilled for the sort of cheap other hardware, electronic stuff that I threw in the bin. So I noticed that the jack will go through the hole quite well. That's fine. But I noticed that the big pots that I wanted to use, they don't go through where they need to go. Okay? It's an easy fix, but I just wanted to show you another tool that you should go buy right now. And that is, actually, I'm not even sure what they're called. These things. I call them Christmas tree bits. And what they are, they're kind of like self-centering. Actually, I've got a bigger one. So this might be a bit more obvious. So you can put it in an existing hole, and as it drills out, it keeps it centered. So I'm not using a normal traditional drill bit. Like if I got the 9 or whatever millimeters this has to be and tried to drill into the metal, bad things will happen. It'll be too hard to line up. It'll be annoying. Don't do that. Get one of these things, and then you kind of just drill, and it'll make perfectly round. It'll even sort of take the burr off the edge. You can get them in various millimeter graduations as they go up. Extremely handy. Get yourself one of these, or get a set. Don't go too crazy. I think this one was like $180. Anyway, but that'll mean that when I drill these out, it'll be perfectly lined up to where it was, which is what I want. And then we can sort of go ahead with the wiring. And the wiring is something that I might not do in front of you, but there's something that I really need to mention, and it's because I'm shielding everything. I have to now consider the entire inside of this guitar will carry ground. Okay? And I've got to be careful because the signal goes in and out of pots and in and out of the switch and the switch is kind of bare metal and the pots are bare metal. So I've got to make sure that I wire that in a particular way where if it becomes loose, it won't start touching the shielding. You know, I get a lot of guitars come in and they're like, my guitar's sounding weird or it's cutting out. And it's actually only because it's a well-shielded guitar and the pot has become loose and it's turned around a bit and the hot lug is touching the wall and shorting out. So we're going to wire in a way that prevents that from happening or mitigates that. You know, you lots of people are like, well, if your wiring's tight enough, it won't happen. It will happen. It just happens. You're mounting these things on a vibrating entity, and then you're expecting them to stay. It won't happen. You know, things become loose, so we're gonna wire it in a way that I wire everything. Whereas if something goes wrong mid-set, mid-performance, it's not the end of the world. It's just loose. If you do it the wrong way, or let's call it the wrong way, you can have things cut out, and then you look like a fool. Anyway, I'm done looking like a fool for today. I got stuff to do. So that's what I'm going to do off camera. I'm going to do a couple more coats of this just to make sure it's nice and conductive, and make sure that it's stuck properly, because sometimes it doesn't adhere as well as I would like. It looks pretty good. I'm going to get that bridge on. I'm going to fill in these little holes with a bit of maybe just some tight bond glue, just to seal them. Put the bridge on, get cracking on the electronics, and then we can string it up and start doing the setup, which I might have to consider some different camera stuff for. But, you know, that's it. Okay. What did I say last time? Be kind to animals. Also be kind to humans. Some of them. That's it.